Central Texas Gardener. I'm Tom Spencer. These days it seems like we're all multitasking, so it's great to have plants that perform on many levels too. Today, Jeff Yarbrough from the Emerald Garden has a few ideas for double duty selections. On tour, let's visit a daylily garden where year-round foliage is just as beautiful as the seasonal flowers.
When Rich Rosen and Anna Marie Pavlik moved to Austin from Minnesota in 1985, they didn't realize that their garden life would take such a twist. Rich had been a serious rose gardener, a passion he brought to his new garden. Then, while looking for a companion plant to roses, he completely switched gears.
Someone recommended daylilies that I had never even heard of before, and I just fell in love with them. What I liked about roses was collecting the new and the unusual, and with daylilies it's even more so because there's all kinds of wonderful forms and color patterns and shapes. And so the roses got to be a chore, and I've now got way more daylilies than I ever had roses, but they're easier to take care of.
They joined the Austin Daylily Society, and eventually the daylilies outnumbered the roses. Since the garden sits on rock, a virtual bathtub when it rains, Rich plants in raised beds. Fencing keeps resident deer on the opposite side of the very edible petals.
If you had a professional landscaper come in here, they would probably gag at what they see, but for me, what's important in gardening is not the end product. It's the process of gardening. I just like being out here working in the soil, nurturing these plants, seeing the beauty of the individual flowers, and collecting. Some people collect golf balls, some people collect coins. I collect all these different weird and wonderful daylilies.
He plants evergreen varieties, choosing ones for early, mid, and late flowering to extend the blooming season. He also threads other plants, including roses, into the design.
It is attractive to me to see a mixture of color. As you walk through the garden, your eye is drawn from flower to flower, and there's a new surprise every place you look. I'm definitely a flower person. I like color in the garden.
So, Anna Marie has custody of the vegetable garden. Everything thrives on the soil blend that Rich uses.
It's a mixture of 4 parts ground pine bark, 2 parts peat moss, and 1 part sand. And it has had such a significant impact on the daylilies that where I am using that soil, the daylilies grow so much better that I'm coming to realize I'm going to have to move the daylilies farther apart. I used to plant on 15 or 16-inch centers, and now that the daylilies are growing better, I think I'm going to move that out to like 18 or 20-inch centers.
He's always working beds to make room for new vines. But daylilies are pretty adaptable about their conditions. They accept partial shade as long as they get light. They also like full sun, but in Texas summers appreciate an afternoon shade break. Since Rich grows for exhibition as well as garden pleasure, he protects with shade cloth in the hottest months. The rest of us are fine with mulch and a little water in extreme heat.
The nice thing about daylilies, though, is they don't wilt so much. They've got those fleshy roots which store water, and so they're a little bit more forgiving.
They're also fun to hybridize to create name brand plants of your own. Rich is now an exhibition and garden judge, but as newcomers to town years ago, it was through garden clubs that he and Anna Marie met new friends and new plants.
When you talk with the average everyday person about gardening the way I garden, they tend to look at you like you're crazy, but when you join a plant society, then you're with kindred spirits who know exactly what you're talking about. They feel the same way. You can talk about this hobby that you really enjoy with people who understand.
Gardeners certainly understand that plants foster other channels of expression and artistry. Rich designs the garden stepping stones. He created a sculpture to accent one bed. Anna Marie, now a full-time artist who exhibits nationally, wants her work to direct attention to the value, beauty, and mysteries of the environment and how people relate to it.
And the theme on some of her artwork has been our modern life in an urban environment. We are constantly surrounded by concrete, steel, glass, traffic noise, advertising signs. We are really removed from nature. People might come home to a house or an apartment and they turn on the television set. They've really lost that connection with nature, and I find that nature is somehow just very therapeutic. I like hiking in nature. I like going to national parks and national monuments. But day to day, I bring nature into my backyard and can commune with nature right here in the flower garden.
You can grab some of these beauties for your own garden at the Austin Daylily Show and Sale on May 21st at the Austin Holiday Inn Northwest from 1 to 4 o'clock. Rich will also host a tour of his garden on May 23rd. For details, click on events at klru.org/CTG. And I'm now joined by Jeff Yarbrough from Emerald Gardens. And Jeff, welcome back to Central Texas Gardener.
Thanks, good to be back.
Well, our topic today are multitasking plants. Now, in these days that things are hectic, we all expect each other to multitask, so why not expect that from our plants, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So you have brought along a bunch of different plants that meet a variety of different needs, which is terrific. Mm-hmm. Real briefly, before we dive in, let's tell people a little bit about Emerald Gardens.
Emerald Gardens is a full-scale nursery in Southwest Austin on 290. We carry pretty much all the normal nursery fare, but we do specialize in aquatic plants and a lot of the exotics and more hard-to-find plants.
Okay. Well, and you've brought along some things that we haven't talked about in a while, so let's go ahead and dive in and see these things.
Great.
Now, talking about multitasking, we all want attractive plants, but often need plants that also serve a purpose. Screening is a big purpose that lots of people want to fill, right?
We are getting quite a few people with one home on top of another looking for screens to basically to make their yard a little more private.
Right. Well, one plant that you brought is pomegranate, and this is the one that we're looking at is a variety called Wonderful. Mm-hmm. Pomegranates are tough as nails. I mean, these are survivor plants. You see them around old farmsteads and things like that. And they do grow fast and tall.
Very fast, very quick, very easy. Normally they're there long after the farm is gone. Mm-hmm. And they do quite well here. I'm from San Antonio, and they produce quite a few pomegranates.
You get, it is the Wonderful is a good producer.
Yes.
And this is a plant that also has, I think, one of the prettiest flowers. I mean, just gorgeous, rose-like, but the color is striking.
Kind of like a glowing orange carnation, almost. Yeah.
There you go. That's a good description for it. And again, these will grow in best, I think, in full sun for the bloom and fruit production.
They're best for full sun. They'll tolerate a little bit less sun, but you won't get much flowers or fruit in shade.
Right,
yeah.
But it'd still be a good screen in shade.
Excellent screen.
Right. Okay, so that's the pomegranate, and everybody's crazy about pomegranate juice these days. Why not grow one in your own backyard?
Exactly.
And another tropical fruit plant is the loquat, and these are plants that have delicious fruit that is underutilized here in the U.S., loved in Mexico and places south. But this is a plant that really, I think, is overlooked too often in our area, especially for those who want to grow food.
Loquats are quite a good evergreen. They grow very fast. Big leaves mean they give you very quick covering and screening. They can be trimmed and sheared, but they do grow very nice natural forms.
Kind of an umbrella shape.
Umbrella shape, almost 20 foot tall, 15 foot wide. I've seen them bigger. They flower in the wintertime. Most years in Austin, we get an abundant fruit that ripens normally about the end of April or sometime in May.
Right.
This winter was a little cold, so no fruit on the loquats, but they withstood low teens and even below 10-degree temperatures with no problem.
Yeah, and they're just a beautiful plant, big glossy foliage, and again, a terrific choice for a lot of different yards. So loquat. Yes. Or for those of you from Mexico, níspero. It's a great plant. Okay, the next one on our list is another one, a double-duty plant for a variety of reasons. This is a non-fruiting variety of olive, right?
Correct. We carry a Bonita olive, which is a non-fruiting variety behind us, and they're exceptionally good evergreen. They're fast-growing. They sculpt and train really well, so you can do almost anything you want with one.
Right.
And they're extremely durable. They're now planting olives for production in the hill country.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm excited by the fruiting varieties, but on the double duty side here, these are exceptionally attractive plants and quite xeric. They don't really require a whole lot of water, and I love the gray-green look you get with them.
Right. Very nice. Good substitute for a Pride of Houston Yaupon holly, possibly a little larger growing, but excellent plant.
Yeah. I'm not big on the Pride of I like the regular Yaupon. I'm not so big on the Pride of Houston. Okay, now we have the Satsuma orange, and this is a great plant for, of course, fruit production, beautiful fragrant flowers, and again, people are really loving to explore the citrus right now.
Yes. A&M has done a lot of testing on the Satsuma oranges, and there's a number of varieties that tolerate middle and low teens and do quite well here. They all produce very good quality oranges. They peel easily and are low seed content and good sweet oranges. So even this winter, we with a light grow cover, we had almost no foliage loss. Depending on where people live in town, some people had better results than we did.
They make a good container plant as well.
Yes, they do, and there's quite a few other varieties of citrus as an excellent patio container plant.
Okay, so be on the lookout for Satsumas among the different citrus that are out there. We have a fruit theme going today, and we have a grapevine to show people.
We have a wine grape here, but there's many varieties of grapes that do well. And again, the A&M has tested quite a few varieties for many years, and there's a lot of recommended table grape varieties. And there's a lot of wine grape varieties for people who want to make wine.
And which variety is this?
You know? This is the Cabernet Sauvignon. I can't pronounce that right.
Sauvignon, that's all right.
Sauvignon, yeah.
And right underneath of that, we have Star Jasmine.
Star Jasmine is one of the best vines, I think. It'll grow in almost any location, sun to shade, even flowers nicely in the shade, and is the best controlled vine. So for trellises, you can't get any better.
It's a well-behaved little plant and incredibly beautiful fragrance on this.
Right.
And depends on where you were, I guess, this winter, whether it was cold hardy or not. But in my area, in central Austin, sailed through like a charm, but doesn't die. It usually just goes back to the ground if it's really exposed.
Yeah, we have a big one on the fence, took very little winter damage, so I think in most areas it fared very well. Yeah.
Right next to that, we have one of the bignonias. This is a crossvine. And this is this Tangerine Beauty or Tangerine Dream? I forget which.
Tangerine Beauty, I believe.
Okay, yeah. And boy, when this blooms all at once, it's just such a sight.
They're very nice, and they'll flower sporadically throughout the year here and there, and they have excellent fall color. They get very nice burgundy purple leaves on them in the fall, which a lot of people don't consider when they're putting them in a landscape.
Yeah, well, the crossvine is one that I think a lot of people should be thinking about, and this is the best behaved of that family. There are some that are not so well behaved, but very dependable. Quite xeric. Once it's established, doesn't really require a lot of fuss at all. Self-pruning in terms of the flowers, you don't need to cut them off. It's a great plant for a lot of reasons.
Yes, it is.
Now, this is one that we have never talked about on the show. I want to spend some time visiting about. It's got this kind of sandpapery quality leaf.
It's very heavy textured plant, and it is used as fiber plant in industry. This is Ramey, and it's used to make clothing and purses, satchels, all kinds of garments and such. And it's a very aggressive ground cover that could be used in place of an English ivy bed.
For shade.
Trees, mostly for shade.
Yeah, it looks like the broadleaf thing would be a shade plant.
Yeah, if it gets too much sun, the wilting would be an issue on it.
Well, it's a handsome leaf. I like the form of the leaf.
Very attractive, very good green, and it holds the green real well too.
Okay, so Ramey, and I guess if people process it, they could weave their shirts.
They can certainly make their own clothes out of it, right?
So you can double duty that way. Now, right next to me, when we only have just a brief time here, but this is one that I'm excited about. This is chaparral sage.
Chaparral sage, Salvia clevelandii, and it's a desert native, West Texas and into Mexico and Arizona. It makes about a 3-foot tall evergreen shrub like a Texas sage, but with long bloom salvia blooms on it. Extremely fragrant. Yeah,
the foliage is very, very fragrant, and I'm sure that it's a tough survivor. It looks like a real xeric plant. We're going to have to wrap it up on that note, Jeff, but I really do appreciate you coming along. I hope people look out for the chaparral sage and all the other cool things that you've brought from Emerald Gardens. And they can find you online at pondsandgarden.com.
That's right.
All right. Thanks for being here. And coming up next, it's Daphne with Down to Earth.
Hello and welcome to Down to Earth. Our question this week is from a viewer, and it's a pretty common one. She wants to know, what's all this stuff that's falling from the trees and onto her car? Well, a few weeks ago was very heavy pollen season for many deciduous trees, and the ones that we notice the most is the live oaks. They release a lot of yellow pollen at this time of year, and then their catkins, their male flowers, fall from the trees. Pollen is very heavy this year due to some weather issues that we've had. There were a lot of fall and winter rain, which made for very healthy trees after a stressful summer. And those trees, our live oaks, do lose their leaves in the early spring, and then they develop flowers before the new leaves come on. Those flowers are wind pollinated, so when there's a lot of wind and some dry, warm days, that pollen blows around quite a bit so that these trees can pollinate other flowers and reproduce themselves and make acorns. These plants do have both male and female flowers on the same tree, but those male flowers, of course, with pollen, are the ones that give us trouble. As I said, the male flowers are called catkins, and they do hang from the branches in cascades that kind of fall down, and then when they dry out, they do fall off of the tree. A warm, dry, windy spring days help disperse that pollen, and then all the catkins fall off onto your car. So first you'll notice, and onto your heads, first you'll notice some yellow pollen on your car around the sidewalks, and then you'll notice some really strange looking dry items around the neighborhood or on your car. Our plant this week is Senorita Rosalita Cleome, and that's a type of spider flower, and the cultivar on that is Senorita Rosalita. This is a newer cultivar, Cleome, which has beautiful dark green leaves that are star-shaped. A very pretty plant overall, and it also has clusters of small pink flowers that are very pretty as well. This plant blooms all summer, right up through first frost. It also attracts hummingbird and butterflies, which makes it a nice plant for our gardens. It usually gets from 3 to 4 feet tall, but it will stay shorter if it gets a lot of sun. It gets about 2 feet wide, so give it a little bit of space. It's only hardy to 32 degrees, so it may be an annual in hard winters like we had last year. This plant does prefer full sun, but it can take light shade. In the light shade, it will get a little taller because it will be stretching for the sun. It's heat and drought tolerant, which makes it great for our gardens. But it does need regular moisture and good drainage, so amend your soil in the beds where you plant it. It's a sterile hybrid, so it doesn't form messy seed pods, and so it also doesn't reseed itself in your garden, making itself messy for you to have to deal with. It does only need fertilizer a few times per season, so it doesn't require much maintenance at all. It's time to sow seeds of pumpkins and watermelons. Most all herbs can be sown now as well, and flower seeds. When you do plant seeds in your garden, be careful with mulch. We do all want to mulch our gardens to keep water in the soil and to cool them off this time of year. But you want to be careful when you plant seeds because with that extra height on the soil, they will have trouble pushing through that in addition to be buried in the soil. So you want to mulch around them only after they've come out of the soil and you've seen them this spring. The pumpkins and watermelons will, again, make fruit for you later this summer or into the fall. But you want to go ahead and plant them now so that they'll have plenty of time to grow vegetatively and then produce flowers in the late summer and then be pollinated and grow fruit for you next fall. We'd love to hear from you. Visit klru.org/CTG to send us your question or plant of the week from your garden.
Thanks, Daphne. Now let's check in with Sweetpea Hoover for Backyard Basics.
Welcome to Backyard Basics. I'm Sweetpea Hoover, and I'm thrilled to talk to you today about herbs. There are two things you can do to help guarantee good herb growing in the yard. One is proper sunlight, and the other is proper drainage. Let's start with drainage. One product I find I love is Haydite. Whether I'm planting in a container with a great potting soil that drains well, I'm always going to add in a good handful of this Haydite product. It's expanded shale and pretty much guarantees permanent drainage wherever I'm going to put it. So again, in planting hole in the yard, I'm going to include the Haydite also in my containers. Have you ever heard of wet feet? That's when the roots are sitting in an unsatisfactory amount of water. It causes yellowing, affects the bloom cycle, so we really want to make sure we don't give our herbs wet feet. 3 herbs I know for a fact love sun, and we're talking 6 hours or over, are these that hate being overwatered, and this is thyme, our lavenders, and our rosemary. I actually call rosemary my mailbox plant because my hose doesn't even reach to my mailbox in order to water it. And now it's huge, flowering, beautiful. I'd also like to talk to you today about certain things that when you buy them so cute and little that you don't realize how big they're going to get in your garden. This little baby oregano that I got in this 4-inch pot is a Sicilian oregano. But if you read a little closer, you'll see it gets a potential of 2 to 3 feet. A good standby of how to measure that is an average sized person with a hug this big and this big is about 2 to 3 feet. Draw that out in your garden before you plant to make sure not one growing on top of the other, that doesn't happen. How about this little bay laurel here? This has the potential to get 20 feet high. I've actually seen it in a butterfly garden. They used to freeze back here in Central Texas, but now that they don't, you're basically looking at a privacy screen. If you're not careful, this can actually overshadow and shade out perennials that had been there and enjoyed the sun at one time. So please be careful and mindful when planting something like the bay laurel or eucalyptus, which has similar problems. Let's move on to some of the things that can grow in shade. I know a lot of people do have shade and still want herbs. You really have a wonderful selection of things you can grow. Comfrey is one, lemon balm is one, and mints. I'd really like to talk about mint for a second. Because it grows from runners and also joints into the ground, we want to keep them separate. I have a great idea for you. It's also referenced in a lot of southern planting herb gardens. To actually take the mint in a terracotta pot. You then fill it with your potting or your actual garden soil and sink that pot into the ground. Mints like to stay in a shade and also a nice watered environment. Terracotta has that special moisture factor that can keep giving. It's got porousness. You're also making sure that these runners don't mix with other mints that you have in the garden. So I would like 1 mint per pot would be ideal. Also, a well-known thing, but hopefully maybe not to our new gardeners, is that once these bloom, they can cross-pollinate. So say I've planted my pineapple mint next to my peppermint. I could get a variation of the two and not get the true herb that I thought I was planting. So keeping them separate and maybe in the pots in the garden or separate when you're actually doing container gardeners would be optimal. And I'd like to feature my favorite mint to you this week, which is this apple mint. Contrary to belief, it doesn't taste like apple. It's actually the only mint that has spearmint and peppermint oil, making it a really soothing tea in summer. People also, when they grow these, don't know what to do with them after they've gotten started. How can you start including them in your teas and your drinks during summer? All you need is a mortar and a pestle. Slightly bruising the leaves, and don't be afraid to pinch. Most of these herbs are so soft tissued that a little pinch was not going to hurt them. So simply pinch off what you're going to be using. This is great in iced tea. This is just great for, again, those 105-degree days that I know are just around the corner. Slightly bruise these herbs, include them in your favorite iced tea or water, and I think you're ready to go. Well, I've been Sweetpea Hoover. This is Backyard Basics, and busy hands are happy hands, so get out there.
Visit klru.org/CTG for online video, today's tips, and more. Next week, get new ideas for summer color tips. Until then, I'll see you in the garden.
To learn about today's program, watch online and follow CTG's blog. Check out klru.org/CTG.